Good evening everyone and welcome to today's live stream. We are live doing question time. If you don't know what this is basically a live stream where you get to ask me any question you want about game dev, Unreal Engine, whatever it is. All you got to do is put your question into chat, be it on YouTube or on Twitch, whichever one you want. We're live on both, I can see both, so up to you, whatever you prefer. So we are live. All you got to do is ask your question into chat. If I do miss a question, don't fret, I'll get another look at it and we'll keep going and going. So, yeah, apologies for last week. I was ill for most of the week. I had basically come down like a man flu cold. It made it quite difficult to do anything last week, but we're back and we've got an announcement as well. Is tomorrow we're doing a Let's Create live stream for Astrobot. So if you want to go through and see that sort of breakdown of how you make a character like Astrobot, check out our live stream tomorrow evening at the same time. So yeah, that'd be quite cool. And another announcement as well, I'll be at MCM Comic Con and EGX in London, and it's October 25th to 27th. So I'll be there, so let me know if you're also going to be there, and happy to meet up and keep a lookout for me. I'll be wearing my logo shirt and things like that. More details about what I'm doing there in due time. Anyway, cool. Let's jump into Unreal and have a look at some of the questions already coming in through the chat. Let me know if music's too loud, or I'm trying to balance the levels, but it don't seem like it's working too well. Okay, so Klaus is first of all asking a question: is there a way around the character blueprint using a capsule collision like for Giant Mech Robot? I ran straight into a bottleneck with this, now I'm stuck. Is there a way around the character blueprint using a capsule collision like for Giant Mech or Robot? Okay, so no. The short answer. There are ways around this. It's mostly going to be, well, there's two answers to this. One is the new motion plugin that Epic are working on. That will solve that problem and make it a lot more flexible for different types of characters. But obviously that's still in development and it's experimental. So yeah. What we can do instead though is, and how we have done up until now, is use a character, but we still have collision on the actual mesh itself, and then we're using line traces and other types of traces to determine whether or not the character can move in a certain direction or not. And it's a lot of that side of things, working out the sort of navigation of it all. But the capsule is still there, mostly because it just makes it easier to set up movement things. Other than that, failing that, it'll be using a pawn, and we'll make our own movement system for it. Next question from Pixel over on Twitch. Hey Ryan, how can construct or generate cables between meshes rendered particles from two GPU emitters in the same Niagara system? For example, a cable between particle number 1 for emitter A to particle number 1 for emitter B, another cable from oh my god, hang on. So you got two GPU emitters in the same system, and you want a cable from particle number 1 in emitter A to attach to particle number 2, particle number 1 in emitter B. A to, oh, okay, I see what I mean. So you can have like parallel emitters coming out. Interesting. I mean, you can't do a cable per se, but you can do like a beam. Is that what you're trying to do? If you're doing a beam, how can you do that? I guess, I mean, we can try something. I don't know if this will work, but we can try something. Cable launcher like this. Okay, so first things first, we need two emitters firing off. So let's just do a quick emitter. Particle update, we'll do spawn rate of just 1 for now. And initialize particle 1 second. And we'll add velocity to it as well. And we'll fix that issue there. So let's just add that to make it go in the X direction a bit better, a bit faster. Okay, there's one emitter. I'm going to copy this, paste this, and I'm going to change the location of the initialized particle rather than simulation position, we're going to have position offset to the Y direction of 100 for now. Okay, so we've got the two going off like that. Let's do it 300 so it's wider. There we go. So there's the particles going off. Now this is what I'm doing when I'm breaking this down. I'm like taking it step by step and doing it slowly with just one particle at a time at first, and then we scale it up. And that's kind of true for all kind of things you make. You start off very small and then scale up as you go. So the trick is we need to transfer the data from one location to the other location, which we can do, but then we need to make this a beam emitter. In fact, actually, what might be easier to do is just use a dynamic beam already rather than this one. There you go. So this is the beam emitter, and like it really was set up for you. Basically, it's a ribbon, and the special thing about a beam versus a ribbon is a beam bursts basically the ribbon as it would be in its final result. Essentially, that's what it's doing. And so over here we've got a beam end of 200. Okay, so the beam end here is the bit that's going to change. That's the location we're going to get from our emitter over here. So let's start off the spawning of this emitter somewhere else. So let's go to initialize particle, and let's do, can I do beam start simulation position? We want to change that to be vector offset vector, or add vector. There we go. So add vector, we're going to use simulation position. Emitter? No, can't get that. Why can't I get the simulation position from that? What? Script define default thing. Yep, I want the offset on it though. If I turn oh, it's a position. Okay, I need position plus vector. That's what I need. So I need to convert. Hang on. I need vector plus vector. This needs to be turned into a position. And this will be simulation position. And B is going to be the offset of, let's do 150. There you go. So it's coming off the side here. Okay, that's what we want. It's just this end part is going to change. So to get the end part, I want to get that from this emitter over here. So I need to generate a location event. So as it's being updated, you'll see in here got generate location event. And for this, you need to make sure this is using persistent IDs. So we'll make that persistent IDs. And we'll make it GPU, as you said, about GPU. Oh, fixed bounds. Yeah, okay, we'll do that in a second. We need to do that. System properties. Fixed bounds. What's wrong with that now? Yeah, what's wrong with that? Compilation failed. Hang on. Okay, we can't do it with. Okay. I can go back to CPU for a second. That's fine, it's not doing it now. There you go. Okay, so basically we need to generate the location event. That's the first thing. Next thing, this stage here needs to know and receive that information. So we can do event handler. It's going to manage the location event for every spawned particle. Max events per frame. We'll start with 30 spawn number. It's going to spawn Actually, I want this to be the same number as this spawn burst, so it's 100. So let's do that as 100. There we go. And then we can turn off spawn burst instantaneous. And on the event handler, we're going to do receive location event. Okay, so we're getting something. Obviously, what this is doing is it's going to just apply the position to the spawn position of the emitter. So that's why we're getting this sort of weird sort of behavior doing this. So I don't want it to do that. So on the position 1 vector, I want it to not apply it. I just want to output the vector. Okay, so it's to output it to a node. And then I go to my beam emitter setup. I go to beam end. I want to make sure it's set to absolute beam end. And then set this to be the position. If I can find convert position, and we'll find in there I want to know what the output is, don't I? Output receive location event. Okay, so that's what it's called. It says over here, I'm pointing but you can't really see, output the received event position to output receive location event vector 1. Okay, so that's where it is. So if I go back to my beam and do location, no, vector, maybe it's not a position node, maybe it is just a vector. Location. The hell? Hang on, what's it called? Output receive location event vector 1. Yeah. It says that. Receive. And I'm confused. Is this a? No, it's a vector. What? Vector 1. Position vector 1. Yeah. So why the hell can't I do that? Vector 1. Yeah, no. Parameters. Maybe I have to use in here. No, stack. Output vector 1. Why is that coming out as a... Oh, it's a position node. It is a position node. Right, okay. So, I need to change that to a position node. Convert position to vector. And then vector 1. What? Oh, I'm using number 1 as well. Whoops. Undo. This one. Convert. Why can't I get that? Ooh, don't know. That should let us do that. Module outputs. Yeah. Can I drag it to that? Beam end. Oh, there you go. Oh, failed. Oh, right. It's because it's been set afterwards. Yeah. Bummer. Okay. If I remove that and go to maybe particle update on that beam. No. Can we update the beam position at all? No. I'm gonna guess no. It's the answer to this. The problem is that we need it to. We can only set the beam's ending point at the very start of the emitters. Well, not start, but before the particle spawned, it has to do this. And the problem is that the beam end can't be updated after the particle, or whilst the particle is being spawned. So I don't think you can do it like that. No, there may be a way. Someone much smarter than me may be able to do it, but I don't see a way of doing that. I mean, alternatively, what you could do is, if I change the start here to simulation position here, and you change the beam end here to 150, for example, it'll come out like that, and you just give it the same velocity as this one. So set location. No, I'll just do this. Copy, paste, and then why is that going that way? Don't know. Like, usually with beams you don't move them. That's the thing. So the idea, dynamically changing start and end points. That's what is dynamically changing. So how the hell do we change that? So I think there may be a way of doing it. I don't know what though, because this update beam is saying that it recalculates the spline positions for each frame to allow for beams with dynamically changing start and end points, which is what we're doing. But I can't see where that's related. There's no beam things in here. Just setup, that's all. Something that requires investigation. Sorry about that. Okay, next up. Sorry. Could you attach the particle itself as the beam start and use the local 00 and use the local? Yeah. You probably. I mean, yeah, maybe. But I think in my case they're just simple emitters. But I think from what I'm guessing is that they are spawning the particles at different angles all the time, so and different speeds. So it's not straightforward like that, unfortunately. Next up, we've got question from oh, there's quite a few. Hang on, I'm trying to find one. Alex, hi, I followed your course on making a Mario Party game. Could be interesting to do a version 2 on how to actually make it multiplayer. There's no tutorial about multiplayer turn-based games like this. Yeah, that's interesting. I would like, yeah, there might be something we look into in the future. Yeah, that could be an interesting one. So next up we got Ben question. What are the best things to do to get a lot of AI on the screen at once, like in Dead Rising and Days Gone? So yeah, there's a number of things you could do. You can just chuck in a load of AI. Unfortunately, that will be quite expensive to do. So normally what you're doing is you're activating the AI as you get near them. So as they detect the players near them, they activate their AI and off they go. We then have it's quite a lot to set up right now. So can we do it? I don't think we have time to do it today. I'll try and make a video on it, but I've got a demo of it actually working. So also when you think it's a lot of AI, it's actually not that much. I mean, there are some games where we have a lot on them, and if there's a lot, chances are they're a Niagara based particle system rather than a strict skeletal mesh. Skeletal meshes are quite expensive to do, so you don't want to have as many of them as possible. You try to make it simpler. In terms of AI, you can also do things like having a lead AI, which then everyone else just follows and does what they need to do. So it's less like computational things on it. But normally the most basic thing is you just activate the AI and deactivate the AI when you get too far away. And that's how I've done it before. Obviously, if you're getting crazy numbers, you're looking at custom code, engine code, way beyond my pay grade of thinking of how you could accomplish that. But it's all about optimizing that skeletal mesh more than anything. So it's no doubt a combination of all of those things mixed together. But you have to ask someone who actually worked on those games really to find out for sure. But I'll do a version of what I've done in the past, and it works really well. Like I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of enemies chasing me just fine. Real time Fat Man. Hey Ryan, I started in Discord, but did the AI series finish or did it get discontinued? It's kind of finished and discontinued. It's kind of both. So as we come up with new things to shelf in AI, if it deserves to sit in the AI series, we'll put it in that AI series. If it's something that is going to be deserving of its own series, we'll put it in its own series. So it's a bit of a mixed bag on how that's going to end. The problem with doing very, very long series is that viewership numbers go down all the way. So you get high numbers at the start, but not at the end. And so it kind of feels not as worthwhile to do a big series. So it's better to chunk it up into smaller parts. So we've been experimenting lately with smaller series. So Patreon members have seen this. We've got the charge jump, wall running, wind controller, and now we've got a combat scenario tutorial series going up very, very soon, which is only like 5 parts long. So yeah. Cheers, man. See you later, AJ. M Gaming. Can you do a fusion system where the player can click an input and create fused versions of the player character and temporarily use it for a few seconds and then turn back to their normal form? I mean, yeah, you're just swapping out a character model for another one. Obviously, a lot more work to set up because we haven't got those sort of characters. Let me just bring in the third-person content. But all you're doing is just swapping in a new character and you can take possession of them. Not really unlocking anything special. I mean, you can do it with unlock sort of methods where it's all in one character, you just unlock bits. But if you're physically fusing and it looks very different, you could just swap out a character and it'd probably be easier to do so. So for example, we've got this character here, and I'll just make a second character, duplicate that, or create a child of it, probably easier. And we just change the color of this skin. We'll just duplicate that and change the tint of this to be red. There you go. And we'll just set that to the second character here. There we are. So we've got character 1, character 2, and character 2 is like the combined version of like 2 characters or whatever. But let's say this character here can double jump instead, okay? And you override whatever functions they have or change the settings available to them. So in this case, we can just change jump here to max jump counts to 2. Oh, not 23, 2. So this character can now double jump. Yeah. And I also customize maybe their movement of their jump velocity to be 1000 instead. So they've got a lot more jump and maybe higher air control, 0.8. Okay, and so my third person character is my main character. Let's say I push an input. In this case, I'll just set it to the 1 key. And when I want to do this, I want to spawn / fuse with another character or another thing that we want to combine and make useful of. So in this case, we're going to do spawn actor from class and choose the other character. So third person character child. Spawn transform is same transform. Get actor transform, sorry. Transform. Collision override. Always spawn ignore collisions. And we're going to tell this thing to be possessed. Oh, we have to get the player controller first. Get player controller. And do possessed. And that's the pawn. Once we've done that, we then want to destroy this one. Okay. But when you're doing this, it's a good idea if you've got anything that you want to be transient between these characters, put it on the player controller instead. So things like coins and pickups and health, maybe you can put that on the other one instead. So this will do 1 and convert back to this one. Okay, and just to see that if that works, let's go to the third person map. And in here, I hit 1, and we now this character instead. Okay. Just realised I've left the quality on low. I was doing stuff earlier and I had to put it down. There you go. So easily swap to a character. Right. So there's that. And then if I want to swap back after a certain amount of time, maybe we can say for the child one on begin play, we can do set timer by event and a custom event for return. And we'll say after 5 seconds, we're going to do basically the same thing but backwards. So spawn actor from class, choose the normal third person character, get world, actor transform, sorry, actor transform, collision override, always spawn ignore collisions, get player controller, possess this pawn, and then destroy this old one. Okay, so after 5 seconds we'll revert back to the other character. Yeah, so this character now has the ability to double jump and has extra jump, and after 5 seconds I'll return back to my own character. / fused, unfused. You're not really fusing anything, you're just spawning a new character in. Okay. One thing you'll notice as well is when I move the camera around this way and hit 1, the camera resets back behind the character. So what you may want to do is when you're going to begin play, you want to set the control rotation of the pawn. So set control rotation of the camera, sorry, camera boom, set rotation, world rotation to the camera boom, player controller, get control rotation, something along that, like those lines. And hopefully that makes that bit out. Nah. Okay, something to work on. But that's the general gist of it. And if you want it, so you combine with certain things, you do an interaction trace first of all to determine who you're fusing with, and then you can get from them what class they're going to fuse with and become that person. Yeah. Marco, imagine having a grid made of plain static meshes. How would you make something similar to grass type but for static meshes based on vertex color? Hang on, what? Imagine having a grid made of plain static meshes. How would you make something similar to grass type but for static meshes based on vertex color? I'm not entirely certain what you mean, Marco. Grass is a static mesh. You can make anything a quote-unquote grass. So for example, I can go into the props here and make the chair grass if I wanted to. All it is just a foliage actor. If you want to do landscape grass, you can do that as well. But either way, you make static mesh actor there. You choose what one you want to use, and now the chair will be a foliage that you can spawn in with as foliage. Yeah. So it's not anything special about the grass itself at all. There you go. So now I can spawn chairs in. So there's nothing at all about it. So if you're about vertex colors, I'm not entirely certain how you're thinking of like what vertex colors on the floor, vertex colors on the meshes themselves. I'm not entirely certain what part you're referring to there. But yeah, there you go. Real-time Fat Man, how would you implement a dismemberment system? I was saying base model and individual parts hidden, but following the base pose and hiding the base and showing the remaining. Pretty much, yeah, that's what you're doing. So your character will need to be cut up, pre-cut up, to indicate all the things they can fall apart on. So if you look at a game like Dead Rising, for example, there's loads of parts that can fall off them, and they're all made be separated easily. And so when they detect damage in a certain bone, they literally just say what bone it is, and then with the associated mesh, just spawn another mesh in, and it drops to the floor, a physics mesh that spawns in, and then we hide that bone, or that part of the mesh. Nothing else to it really. It's basically like clothing. It's the same way we do clothing. It's just with limbs instead. Obviously I can't do it because I don't have a cut up skeletal mesh to use, but yeah, that's how it does it. Next up, Hysham, how can I change the texture depending on distance of it from the camera in the material? Yeah. So let me make sure I get reading this right. How do you know what bone info or the bone was hit? Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. How do I change texture depending on the distance from it in camera material? Okay, so first thing you need to do is get the camera position. I'll give you the world space position of the camera, and then you'll want to get the actual position of the individual pixels via the absolute world position, and then you can work out a distance between the two. So you can type in distance, and there's distance there. Plug in that, and then you can divide that by however far you want it to be, like the maximum range. So let's say we're going to make it 1,000. Okay. You divide by 1,000, so anything less than 1,000 away, the number will be 0 point something. Anything above that, 1,000, will be over 1. So we need to clamp it, and then we need to lerp it with a linear interpolate, and that will be your alpha. And then after that, it's just whatever textures or materials or colors you want to use instead. So here, for example, we'll put in red, and over here we'll put in green. Okay, so that'll go with that. And if I put this into my scene, we'll give it this one. As I get closer to it, it becomes more red, and as I get more out, it becomes green. Yeah. And if I want to make it close, obviously that's based upon the position of it. Like that. So obviously if the camera's right up against it, it's going to be red, and then everything else in between. And then if you want it to have like a little bit at the start, which is going to be red all the time, so like it's not going to be 0 as red, it'll be everything between 0 and 0.2, for example, is going to be red. What we can do is we can now add onto this, add on 0.2 0.25, for example. And that should make that still red sooner, hopefully. No, I've made it wrong. Not add 2.5. 5 by 1,000. We want to take away. Subtract 0.25. Yeah, so it's red a lot closer up and you get further and further away. That's how you do that. Okay. How to get the info what bone was hit. So for that you need to use a point hit for damage or any kind of hit trace. So because the hit result of something, like if I just get like a line trace by channel, for example, this out hit here, this is a hit result, and they're quite often used, so using point damage as well, which is normally where you use bone detection, but here you get the bone name. Okay, and the bone name refers to, if I go to the character and go to the physics asset, yep, so this is what it refers to. So if I hit this part of the arm, yeah, that is going to determine that that should be the upper arm, obviously, but it also takes into account of things that are merged together. So this is quite an annoying one to use because it's all kind of bunched up, but we can determine those individual bones there. So for example, the individual fingers aren't counted, you just only hit the hand and it will just return the hand R bone. Yeah, it's whatever's attached to, whatever bone's attached to the shape. Okay, so here's the constraint here. Okay, so yeah, and it will just return the name of these parts here. So it will return the pelvis, spine, upper arm, so you won't get anything else out of that, you'll just get what you need. Okay, essentially. Bloody bug. Toxic. Have you ever done building zones that are not rectangle shapes? So kind of, you can do that. So if you go to modeling mode, go to the let's say extrude polygon, and then the output type, change it from static mesh to volume, and you can change it to whatever type of volume you want to use. So blocking volume is default, but you can change that to a trigger volume if you like, and you just draw out the shape of your zone like that, and put in the size of it like that, and hit complete. So now you've got a zone of that particular shape, but you can't, like, you can only use it in the level blueprint. That's the downside. It's not stored anywhere. It's not like stored in the map folder like static meshes. So you do have to use it inside the level blueprint. So with that in there, we just do on the event of actor begin overlap, character is equal to the player character. We can then go that, and do print string ground floor, we'll call it. Okay, so if I walk into this bit, we get ground floor, but then I can specify, maybe I want this to be the ramp. So I go back to my modeling mode, extrude polygon. Doesn't have to be perfectly exact, you just need a rough estimate. Oh yeah, I forgot. I should have done this in orthographic view. Whoops. there is. So yeah, do it, do it, do it. Okay. Oh, it didn't extrude it. Why didn't it extrude? There you go. Complete. And that'll be the ramp one. You need to go back to level blueprint. An event, collision. Begin overlap. Do exactly the same thing. And just do just to say ramp. So you go to the ground, come out there, ground floor, ramp, and then you can make it come up and do something else up here. So yeah, you can do stuff like that. And then so you can do it with a different volume. So if you want to do it with a location volume, you can do that. You can do bounding blocks and like customize invisible walls. So rather than doing an invisible wall like with just blocks, you can specify a unique shape for your level. So yeah, you do that. Next up, also generate material instances from a batch of textures via a utility widget. This is from Overbeck Studios. Also generate material instances. Don't know. So creating a yeah, I get what you mean. Not too clear. There's probably a better way of. No, I guess not. No. No, I don't think so. I'll have a think while I'm answering other people's questions, but I don't think so. Tobias, how you run? Which plugin would you use for multiplayer racing game, chaos vehicle, advanced vehicle system, or something different? The downside to I mean, I haven't tested it, so I have no idea which one would be best to use. But chaos physics, the problem with that one is using the chaos vehicle system is because it's using physics. Physics are a nightmare to replicate, so you tend to sort of fake the physics going around and replication of a racing game. So all the physics stuff is handling like visual things on your side, but when it's replicating, it's just replicating the position of the vehicle. So I'm not entirely certain. It's something I'll have to playtest and check. And that's often the case. You don't know the answers to everything, so you do need to go and do a bit of R&D, like research and development, on what plugin, what method can be best. And that's what you're spending your time at the start of a project or what game project at a studio. That's what you're doing at the very start, is figuring out what's the best solution for all your problems you need to solve. Yeah. Can you do a battle pass system and or newsletter system? So a battle pass system is really simple. It's literally just like a leveling system. You just gain XP So if you just look at my leveling system videos from ages ago, they'll still work exactly the same. And you just if you're more worried about how to give the player rewards and things like that, you're doing checks. Like you'd have something on your player character which is storing a safe on a safe file what they've unlocked and what they've reclaimed, and then yeah, you're just giving them when they unlock it. It's not anything special. It's just a leveling system. So just use the same as a normal leveling system. Newsletter. You'll need a plugin probably to do that, because you need to do HTTP requests and pulls, which you can't do out the box. So you do need to use that. I think there's a free one on the marketplace. I can't remember now. But most newsletters are actually handled by the server side, by the company. That's not even related to the game. It's mostly just back end. Josh Works. When building a multiplayer game, would you recommend using child actor components for weapons and other things that should be attached to character via a socket? The classic answer of it depends. So the downside to child actor components, when you're spawning these other components, is that it can get expensive, but it's all relative. It depends on how many times you're doing it and what you're doing it with. I mean, yeah, possibly, yeah. That may be the simplest way of doing it. Yeah, whatever works best. I think the difference is going to be negligible. So try it out and test for yourself and see what works out best. I don't know off the top of my head. Shifa gravity on a donut. So not easily is the answer to that one. The main reason, well, if you're in 5.4, there is a gravity function where you can change the gravity of the character as they're running around it, and you change it based upon the line trace down to the floor. The difficulty at the moment with that gravity system is the camera controls, and in just movement controls in general. But it has to be relative based upon which way your character's facing and which way the camera's turning as well. That's the hardest bit, is the movement bit. The gravity bit isn't too bad. If you're using 5.4, it's built in. I've got a video on that for working on a sphere. It'd be the same for working on a donut. The downside is the camera controls and movement controls, making that work and adjust on the fly. That involves a little bit more work. So look at that first of all, 5.4, and then that'll be a good starting point. Otherwise, you're making it from scratch. The main, the tricky thing is the movement stuff, and the reason why it's tricky is because in the third-person character, our movement here, we get the control rotation and we get the right vector of that control rotation, and then you can also use things like get the forward vector of the control rotation. But the problem is that control rotation is not normal anymore, because your control rotation usually is clamped to your movement. So for example, my pitch of my character is that, and that returns a world rotation, so minus 90 and 90. But if I'm on my side, I want it to now be something else. I want it to not be clamped. Yeah, so I have to update the clamp of that, which then will update the roll and not roll, update the pitch in your over here too. And so the get right vectors and forward vectors are very awkward in that sense, because these are getting world coordinates. We need to transform them and change them and put them back into world coordinates again afterwards. So yeah, it gets messy. I think I remember seeing a forum post on the Unreal website, someone working it out on how to do it. It is a bit involved. There's a few things to do, but just check it out and you can see. But yeah, try that. You're welcome, Toxic. But as I say, they're only useful for that one level. Once you have to use it somewhere else, you can't. You can duplicate it, obviously, but you can't use it in a different level. You have to make it again. So yeah. 3ZL, what's the best way to know replication? Do you mean understand it? The best way to understand replication. Obviously, you want to always start with simple. Replication is very difficult for numerous reasons. The first hurdle people come up against is understanding what's going on. The main thing you have to remember is that the server should be in control of most of the all the important things, which is most of the stuff that's going on in the game. There are some things that are replicated already, so you don't have to worry about that. But with replication, you have to ask yourself what needs to be replicated and what doesn't need to be replicated. So, a good question, a good example of that is I often get the question about the inventory system, and people say like, "How can you replicate the inventory system?" And I always say to them, like, you shouldn't really need to replicate the inventory system because usually it's local to you really only. No one needs to see your inventory. Unless you want them to show the inventory, then yes, you have to replicate it. But in which case you can just replicate the array across, or replicate the functions. So replication has to be server-led, server-controlled. And so always think that the server is one that's in charge of it. So if something is replicated, the server is the one that has to call the replication effect. The only ones that you have control of are the ones that you own. Otherwise, everything else is owned by the server. So always think about it as, when I play the game like this, if I was playing this in multiplayer, even though there's only one player in the game, like two versions. Now, let me showcase actually what I mean. Two server. Okay, so like, here's a multiplayer game, right? So on your screen you'll see two characters, right? And you're controlling your character, no problem. Things that you do on your character, fine, but what you have to understand is what you actually are doing is you're telling the server what you are up to. Okay, and the server's then updating it for everyone else to see. So in this case, for example, you can see here the client has generated the print string for ground floor, and that's because they're the ones who walked through it, and the server was the one that generated the ground floor again for that one. But the level blueprint isn't replicated. Okay, level blueprint is individual. That's why you're only getting the client 0, even though on the server the client is walking into that field. They're not the player character, so the player character, they're not counting as a player character. It's hard to understand. It's very late. The main thing is you have to understand is that the server is in control of all of it, so they need to be sending out information all the time. So if you replicate a variable, the only one that can change the variable and to make it replicated is the server. If you're doing a rep notify, the only one that can trigger the rep notify is the server. If you're doing a multicast event, the only one that can do that is the server. So even if you own the character, multicast can't contact other people without the server. So the server needs to be in charge. So obviously there's a lot to replication. I do recommend checking out the earlier works I've done on replication to get a fuller, deeper understanding of all the various things in it. There's quite a lot. A few notes though, multicasting is expensive compared to rep notify, so where you can do rep notify instead. And things like physics don't replicate very well, so try not to rely on physics in a multiplayer game. There's a lot of things to work out, and what's really good to work this out is a good video done by the Rocket League guys, GDC talk. They've done a video talk presentation about how they solved the physics prediction for the ball. Because the ball has to replicate exactly its position at all times, but it's a physics-related ball, so that's not easy. You can't just straight up just click replicate and it'll be okay. Because the reason why is because physics gets calculated on the local machine based upon your CPU clock, so it's going to be slightly different because of lag. So you need to replicate that, and this often leads to problems where things are jittery as the server updates the position of things all the time. So they've actually developed a system to work out and predict what should be going on here, and this is how they do things like predictions and working out how to predict where the player is going to be at any one time based upon their current variables. Yeah, so do check out that video. It's really useful. It's kind of mind-blowing how they solved it. It's quite good. But yeah. Igidus Studios. I read about additive animation recently. Would that be a good way to grip your items without getting whole new animations? Yes, exactly that. Yep. Hanateo, so for making an upgrade in a Metroidvania game, would I pawn for that character one way to make, say, upgrades? I'm not too sure what you said that there at the end, but in Metroidvania games, it depends on how you want to handle it. There's numerous ways of doing it, but in Metroidvania games, when you unlock something, you're just unlocking it on that character. You don't usually spawn a new character in or anything like that. You're setting up the ability or unlocking something on the characters, like players in controls. And yeah, there's nothing else that's special really about it. You just unlock it. I think I've done talks or videos about it before. That character be one. For that character be one way. Play the upgrade one way. It's a save system. Once you upgrade something, you save it, and that's it, and it's locked onto the character. M Gaming Studios. I use your buff and debuff tutorials. How would you apply a debuff or buff to a character animation? So you probably want to make an interface to handle the interaction between the buffs and debuffs and on the animation sets. But the way I've handled it with a current client at the moment is what we did on the character mesh and their animation blueprint. In an anim graph here, we done a thing where we done. Let me just do. Store this as a cache pose. Yeah, we'll call that main cache. And in the output pose here, we're going to use a state machine. Yeah, and that'd be status effects or buffs, debuffs, whatever you want to do. And so you can plug that into there. And we did a thing where we had a state here for the base, and then we did various state aliases. So, for example, like frozen, like that. You can go up and do add state, start frozen. Frozen. No, during frozen, and then as state end frozen. Okay, so and you have them all lined up like exactly the same way, pretty much. And then on the base, you have another state alias going to end status. That'll go into there, right? And this status here, you'll be tracking a variable on your event graph which is storing like what status effect they currently have, which could be an enum, for example, and you apply it like so. That's one way of doing it if you've got a fixed number of statuses. If you're doing a different animation pass and everything, you may want to give it a standard animation on the asset, the buff or debuff, and then send that asset over to the animation over here, and that be sent through as a variable. So, for example, here we may have status effect over here, and you may have an animation sequence player. To go to the sequence over here and create an exposed pin, and you promote that to a variable. Okay, and that'll be the status effect sequence. And then when you are sending that over via an interface, you're just sending over the sequence and setting it. And once it's set, then you can make this trigger over here. So you do get is valid like that. Yeah, and then go off. That's just going to return in a thread unsafe. You've got a lot more to do, but there's numerous ways you could do it, depending on what you want to try and achieve. Okay. What is the best practice to handle a lot of character stats which are changed a lot? So I just put them on a stats component, and then they're just variables that are categorized and organized neatly. That's literally all it is. Sahara Karikozira, a Beyblade game. So I actually did a question time once before for exactly this. I don't remember which one it was, but if you go back, I did label this one, I think. So if you go back and search in my channel for question time, and you're looking for, I think I done it as a thumbnail as well, so you can see it as a thumbnail. It's like we made a spinning top that could bounce around and ping pong around. Yeah. In a game like Space Marines 2, where enemies are numerous, is it a good practice to use crowd detour manager comp or have it negative results on performance? So there's lots of things that affect performance. Skeletal meshes are really expensive, yeah, so have a lot of memory going on. This is why you may find that people will use a Niagara effect and then swap them out when they get too close. That would be a safer bet. But without working on a game myself, I can't tell you exactly how they did it. But normally speaking, yeah, skeletal mesh asset is expensive to do, so you will want to swap it out at some point, or swap it in at some point rather. Craig Brown, say if I wanted an open world using PCG to generate all the foliage static meshes, if I wanted to be able to interact with the foliage, such as cut grass and trees, what approach would you take? That's an interesting one, because yeah, with foliage you can't, like, you can't edit, or you can't add logic to it or anything like that. So if it's a tree, you probably have to do it as a blueprint of some kind. That'd be an interesting one. That'd be a good one to try and solve that. Like, try and do like a Zelda style, like burn the grass or chop the grass. Interesting. I'm thinking it will have something to do with vertex painting. So live vertex painting, which you can't do, I don't think, by default in Unreal while you're playing the game, like in runtime. But you do a vertex paint probably, and then you just blend it into singed or cut. So, I mean, for example, if I go to start content, go to bushes, prop, bush, like this. And let's say I want to quote unquote cut that. We'll probably paint it to allow it for that. So go to mesh paint, and we're going to change the color mode here to RGB. And what I want to do here is I'll make it all black except for the bits that I want to use. Swap that round, fill, there you go. Except for the bits I want to indicate as being cut or trimmed or singed or whatever. So if I change this back now, change it to red, choose the red channel for cut, and then just paint the tops of our plants. Like that. I haven't looked actually for ages if they've added runtime vertex colouring. It's how you do things like walking through water to make yourself look wet. Similar sort of concept. So something like this. And then on the material, you'd have on your opacity mask here, that vertex colour. And we use red over here, and we'll say multiply that by red. And if I believe that as it is, it'll only show the top half, probably. Yeah, that bit there. I want to obviously do the opposite. So we're going to do 1 minus. So I'll take that red here, 1 minus. Put that in there. Apply that. And that hasn't worked. 1 minus that. Multiply by that. Yeah, that should work. Why wouldn't that work? Hold up. So put that in like that. Get just the top half. I can't 1 minus it this side of things because that's going to 1 minus this, and I don't want that. If I leave it like that, I'm going to get the cutouts wrong. Yeah. So why wouldn't that work like that? I mean, maybe it is. It's just masked. I think it is working. It's just I didn't paint it very well. So if I do seal, so basically round up like that, and then put that in there. Yeah, there you go. So cut it in half. Like that. And so you just do like a live vertex painting maybe on it, but I'm not entirely certain how you would achieve that. If it is possible, even in Unreal currently. This is 5.3, this version, so I don't think it's in this version. Have a quick look. I don't think it is, though. There are plugins that allow you to do it, if you want to actually do live vertex painting. Vertex color, oh, you can do override. Skin meshes. Turn it off, let's have a look. That's interchange. That'd be a fun one to figure out. See if they paint vertex single color. I think if you want to sample which vertices, yeah, I'll have a look into it. Yeah. But it looks like there may be some vertex color manipulation you can do now in 5.3 onwards, but I'll have a look. Hey Ryan, how would you manage having a huge number of items that add effects to the player? I assume you just wouldn't use 1,000 branches. No, you put the effects of what's going to happen to the player on the item. So you just chuck the item onto the player, attach them, make it do the work there, not on the character. Yeah, Craig Brown, yeah, if you do it at BPs, it would be performance heavy, yeah. So I'll look into it. But yeah, that would be the way they would have done it. And obviously if you want it burnt, you just change it to a different vertex color and you just add a burned singe top to it. But yeah, no, I'll look into it. I'm interested to see if we can do vertex coloring in runtime now. So we didn't used to be able to, so I'll have a look. Anyway, unfortunately that'll have to do for today as we're out of time. It is getting very late and I've got to go and do a private session in a moment. So a massive thank you to everyone who has joined us live. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/Ryan Laley, and a donation of just $1 gets you access to all our videos early. And in a moment, that includes access to our charge jump, our wall running, and our wind controller. And also coming very soon is the combat scenario. So if you want to know how to do a combat scenario where you walk into a room and it triggers stuff going on, spawns the enemies in, they fight, something else happens, all that stuff, we're going to show you how to set up in a nice efficient way to make it really flexible for you making your games. So if you want to check that out, head over to Patreon and you can support the channel as well to get access to loads of other benefits too. If you want private sessions, head over there too. You can get them at the top tier as well. Or if you want private sessions privately, you can also do that on the website on riley.com/sessions. Thank you once again for checking us out. We're back again live tomorrow doing a Let's Create on creating the Astrobot robot character movement. So we're going to basically decipher what's going on there and destruct it and figure out how to make it ourselves. So thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you as always for your support and generosity, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye everyone.